No more parties in LA. Bengals head to LA to take on the Chargers. We'll talk about this coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. I am Ace. He is Zim. Zim, how we doing today, bro?
We're doing good. I'm trying to make sure we got our updates right, looking at the injury reports, looking at what's going on in Bengals world, feeling encouraged, somewhat nervous. Big game coming up Sunday night. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, bro. We probably should have went live about 15 minutes ago because the show unofficially has started before we hit the live button. We were talking about a lot of things. As you guys know, we're going to talk to you guys about a lot of things. Obviously, we got to talk about the Jamar Chase contract situation that's being brought up out there in mainstream media. We'll give our thoughts on it because we feel like this is an in-house Wincinnati type of topic. So we're going to discuss that. Also, the status of T. Higgins, we'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, we're going to get into the preview of the actual game. So we're going to go through the offense, the defense, and, of course, we're going to give you guys the Wincy Player of the Week and the game plan to the Bengals coming out with a victory. We have all of that coming up next. Once again, the Wincinnati podcast is powered by BETUS. Shout out to them for sponsoring the show. Jamar Chase, man, I don't like you were just telling me before we got on here. If you've been on social media, it seems like it's been an uptick of people speaking on the Jamar Chase situation, talking about how the Bengals are going to owe him a ton of money now with him having a triple crown or looking like he's headed towards the triple crown season here. Micah Parsons was on his podcast talking about it. I saw a nasty one from Torrey Smith saying that Jamar Chase should refuse to play next week after the 266-yard game. What are your thoughts just on this situation? I know we kind of talked about it in the offseason, but the fact that it's being brought up now, mid-season, while he's in the middle of this historic run at the receiver position, why is it being brought up now?
I think me and you talking too. We'll bring our conversation to the light, too, because all of this is warranted. The Bengals should have locked this down before the season. We're not going to go into the specifics of everything, but they were very close and they should have got it done. And so that part is warranted. The part that I just dislike so much is when I go back in my brain and I start thinking about other teams that had the same exact situation. Like Justin Jefferson last year was in the same exact situation. They're not telling our fan base, they weren't telling Justin Jefferson he should sit out a game or anything like that. Now, mind you, he did get hurt, but he played 4 years, and then he got his contract extension in the offseason. Now, the Bengals should have been smart and did it before. So any conversation about it, again, is warranted. But I just think that they don't treat the Bengals the same, and that's my gripe. And one of the things that I think was some of the sarcasm, the pages, like I'm not gonna name none of them specific, but some of the ones that caused me to be like a content creator is that it was always like about Bengals at some point we're cursed, we're gonna mess it up. And part of that stigma and part of that conditioning is that it's like a systematic oppression that the mass media puts on us that we just take it for like what it is. And I don't want to get like too deep into the psychology, I guess, of it all, but that does kind of fascinate me, like with the whole thing. I just look at some of these same instances, and when somebody's playing really well, like I was just telling Ace, I'm like, George Pickens is playing really well. He's going into the upcoming, like, at the end of the season, they're going to have to kind of start talking about that contract. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different, you don't see that with them. And again, it's warranted, But I just feel like when Cooper Kupp was about to get a triple crown, he ultimately did get the contract after the season. But nobody during the season was doing that to him. And these are the little small things. And you're going right in between the Sunday night game. I see all these different Instagram posts in the Jeremy Fowler report about T. Higgins again, too. And you're going into this big game, and our fans are trained to be like, man, you know what? They are cheap. And I'm with you. 100% I am. But at the same time, I feel like it's so unfair. And life isn't fair. But I feel like it's so unfair to our fan base. Every time that there is something to cheer about, like T. Higgins possibly coming back this week that we're going to talk about, or Jamar Chase chasing the Triple Crown, they take it away from you immediately and be like, how you going to pay for it? And then when I go on a show I just left, that was the first, somebody said, y'all going to have enough money to pay for it? Can you imagine if the Bengals had money? And I was just thinking to myself, like, does anybody else have to go through this? And I guess not. Ace would tell me like, no, because nobody's as cheap as like Mike Brown. So I guess they don't. But I don't know. When I see other guys don't get paid in the same circumstances, I just think it's kind of disingenuous that now, instead of those guys like Micah Parsons and all these people coming out and just saying, you know what, Jamar Chase is unequivocally the best wide receiver in football. Let me tell you how he's generational. They don't want to say that. They don't want to give you that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, remember in the off season when we would do those spaces and we'd be like talking top 3, top 10? I'm like, so you're telling us our offensive line is trash, our coaching is trash, our defense is middle of the pack, and when we tell y'all we got top wide receiver core in football, everybody's like, maybe like number 2, number 3. It's like this unwillingness for anybody to give us anything, even when we're 4-6. They don't even want to give you the fact that Jamar Chase is undoubtedly the best wide receiver in football in this sentence, period. Like, not no money attached to it. Like, just give me that. Like, you can't give our fan base that. And it's a weird little gripe that I have. But y'all know me. I hate ops, and I hate their outside opinion. If Ace was to tell me that, or somebody that is a Bengal fan was to tell me that, we got to have a discussion. But I feel like their opinions are so disingenuous because they never come beforehand and talk about, you know, like, these guys are really good, but then when they play really well, they're immediately like, how y'all gonna be able to pay them? Because they're like preying on their downfall. And I feel like all of y'all, like a lot of people were smart enough to understand. Y'all know that they're doing that, right?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that they're doing it. I just feel like the Bengals and ownership set themselves up to that. The narrative has always been there. And I think there wasn't an easier deal to get done than Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I think that that's where the issue comes in is anytime Jamar Chase is going to have a big game, this is going to be the narrative, right? Like, we talk about the 266. It's no surprise to me that after that game, they want to talk about, oh, well, why didn't you pay him? It's going to cost X amount of dollars. Now he's going to be a triple crown. These are the same things that we were saying before the season happened. So it's not a shock that Jamar Chase is having a good season. It's not a shock that we're frustrated with the Bengals for not getting ahead of this, because this has been something that they've done and shown that they've done in the past, right? When it comes to T. Higgins, they're just a little bit too late. Now the market has exploded. We've seen the market explode this summer, and a lot of people were thinking like, hey, this thing is getting kind of explosive. You know that you've already messed up that opportunity with T. Higgins. This is the time to get Jamar Chase done. We've said that. We've talked about it. It didn't happen, and now the Bengals are going to have to pay that bill when it comes due next offseason. The issue with that is, the issue that I have with it is, I agree that this isn't that much different than the Justin Jefferson scenario on the surface. On the surface, I don't think it is. I think, like you said, you made a good point. Justin Jefferson clearly was trending towards a top 3, top 1, top 2 receiver as it was time for him to get paid, and he did not get paid with that deal immediately, which I understand. My issue is, how is the relationship between Jamar and the front office now? Like, being that you've gone through this whole situation, I just don't know how it is. And being that he had to sit out. Now, I'm not sure if Justin Jefferson sat out as well. To me, this just shouldn't even be a topic. Like, that's where my frustration comes from from it. I do agree with you that the conversation should be about how great of a receiver Jamar Chase is. The conversation should be about the people who had AJ Brown and all of these other guys that they were putting over Jamar Chase. Where are those people at now? But to me, it's still frustrating because we shouldn't even be having this conversation because it's Jamar Chase at the end of the day. So we'll see where that leads the Bengals. Obviously, there's nothing that they can do about it right now unless they break precedent and just sign him to an extension in the season, which honestly, if it was up to me, yeah, I would do it now because I even think if you wait into the offseason and if you were to wait from now to the offseason, I think it's a drastic change, especially when guys are out there talking about T. Higgins being the number one guy on the market, right? Obviously the Bengals picked Jamar Chase over T. Higgins. So whatever T. Higgins signs for, Jamar Chase is gonna have to sign for more than that. So, as it stands right now, I would get the deal done if I were them. If you don't, it's gonna be the topic of the offseason. And I kind of hated it coming into this season. I'm hating now that it's a topic of the conversation now because the focus right now should be how can the Bengals get to this 7th seed. That's what it really is about. Like, let's talk about Jamar Chase putting up Jerry Rice type accolades and stuff like that. Not how much is he going to get paid. Everybody knows how much he's going to get paid. He's going to reset the market. So it's a shame that that's the conversation. And yeah, I do feel a type of way that that's the conversation now instead of Jamar Chase is so far ahead of any receiver at number 2. It's not even close. Like the people I was in this space this past summer and the dude was like, are you really comparing him to Jetta's? Like, let's look at Jetta's numbers. And let's look at their numbers. And like, I would love to have that conversation now that Jetta's has gotten paid and Jamar is doing what he's doing in an offense without T. Higgins for the most part of the season, without another huge threat, without a run game. But unfortunately, we can't talk about it because they want to talk about this much. So that's
in the fact that the Bengals are 4-6, it's like even the biggest, the loudest person in the room being me. I'm not about to go out there and be like, bro, he's unstoppable.
And I know bad guy not in the comment. I ain't mean to cut you off, bro, but I know the number one Jamar Chase hater, AJ Brown. He's not better than AJ Brown. He's not better than Devonta Smith. Right. Come on, bad guy. This boy about the Triple Crown numbers, man. When you can have that conversation,
you just gave him fuel. You just gave him fuel now. Oh Lord. Yeah, like I this is and we could go to, like you said, the real deal is the Bengals possibly getting a number 7 seed, maybe even a 6 seed. You never know. I have a hot take. I think a 7 seed might be 9-8 this year, but let's see. But one thing that I was saying, and I might have messaged this to Joe Goodberry or something the other day, or like somebody else in the thread that me and you were in or something. And I was like, one of the biggest problems with sports, and not just NFL right now, is that the traditional fan has evolved to the point that we, like people like us that get educated on the contracts, and then now we're conveying the message to the fan. The general fan, the traditional fan, doesn't really exist like it used to. So in that, and that's not a bad thing, you know what I mean? Like to be educated on, like, hey, this is what the trajectory of my team is. This is where it could be. This is how we are in the draft. All these different things. But the tradition of I just want my team to win is like losing itself. You know what I mean? Like in the conversations, because literally, like during the game, I don't know if you do this during your live or your live tweet. Somebody has a real good play, and they'll be like, "How are we gonna pay him?" Like after it, I'm like, "You're saying that right now?" like you know what I mean? Like, or like after a game, like Joe went off crazy at the end of the game or something. I remember last week, and somebody on my Instagram was like, "Yeah, it's a shame. This is all they're gonna have." And I'm like, "Come on, bro! Like, pump the brakes real quick. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, let's we're not that old, but like, let's bring a little bit of old school like fandom back in. Like, I want to win. If I had to come on the internet just to talk about what is wrong with the Bengals, I wouldn't go on the internet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I would encourage anybody, if, I'm not a health advisor or a psychologist, but if something isn't making you happy, try to find other things that do make you happy. For me, the Bengals winning makes me very happy. And I hope the Bengals can win coming up Sunday night.
Nah, for sure. So speaking of Sunday night, let's go ahead and shift to that conversation. Let's start to talk a little bit about the T. Higgins situation. Let's talk about that before we get into the game now. T. Higgins status, it looks like he's getting closer to being healthy. However, like you said, there's these third-party people putting out articles talking about his free agency options right now. If T. Higgins does not suit up for this game, what does that mean for the Cincinnati Bengals?
In terms of long term or just Sunday night?
Sunday night. Let's talk about Sunday night.
I think Sunday night, it puts them at a big disadvantage because, to me, this is one of the best cover teams that the Bengals have faced. So you need to show the Chargers something that they haven't seen all season, and that's a plethora of weapons of this level. And to me, the one thing that I think could really cook them is to see, if you go look at their games, as we're going to go into the matchup probably later in the show, I don't know a team that has the weaponry of this. I don't know if there's a better wide receiver combo in the NFL than Jamar Chase and T. Higgins when they're playing together. I will say this long term. T. Higgins last year played some games that a lot of people forgot. A lot of people forgot he played some games late in that season when Joe Burrow was gone and put his body out on the line for it, right? The conversations in the all season about Adam Schefter talking about, is he going to make a business decision and stuff like that? I would say, and this is just my opinion, I would say that this is one of those games that will fall under that category, because having a quad injury is a tough injury, but the timeline would suggest that even if you were in the same spot, like similar to last year with the hamstring, this is a game that you would have to put your body out on the line for, even if it's just a red zone package, even if it's limited. You would have to go out there at this point after he's gotten all the leeway from those games. And I think the ability to say, hey, am I going to play in this game versus what does my future look like? All those things start to weigh in. And it doesn't mean that it makes him a bad person or whatever, but this is one of the games that you will have to say, from your advisory point, whether it's the agent or what do you feel about the situation. And I think it's kind of not fair, but it's what happens with football when this much money is on the line and you have a family and a legacy to protect. There are different factors that you have to factor in, but at the same time, you got all these teammates and coaching staff and all these people that are definitely counting on you too. So I think he plays, but I don't know. Today he went limited. So we'll see.
Yeah, he was limited today. Returned to practice for the first time. So I just think that they need him, man. I mean, I understand the business side of things because he is, at the end of the day, he is going into a contract season. And obviously this is a game where you get injuries. But I think the Bengals just need him right now, man. They can't afford to go 4-7. I know he likely wants to play. I'm not giving no inside information or anything here. This is just pure speculation from my end. I think if someone would be trying to keep him off of the field, I think it would obviously be the person in charge of his business decisions. We'll see how much that weighs in the situation. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or nothing like that. I don't like talking and speaking on somebody else's situation, but at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do is talk about things going on with the Bengals. And T. Higgins' status is major at this point because you're talking about a team that hasn't really shown right now as it stands that they have a replacement for him. You got a replacement in Mike Gesicki the week prior. Last week, you didn't have one. Our guy Burton, he didn't look like it. Like, I'm going to just keep it a buck. He didn't look like it. Yoshi has made some plays here and there in the red zone and stuff like that. But T. Higgins, to replace him, you're not going to replace him with one person, right? It's going to take a combined effort. And in order for them to go against probably likely the best defense that they faced, at least statistically in rankings, from a ranking standpoint, they need T. Higgins out there. So hopefully we get T out there. We'll be monitoring this situation. He's not the only one either because Orlando Brown Jr. is actually,
right,
possibly in jeopardy for this one too. So it's not just T, but T is a big part of this team. He's one of the best players. He's a top 5 player in my opinion on this roster in terms of talent and importance. And if they can get him back, man, they're gonna need him for the end of this run. So maybe it was a situation where they felt like let's keep him out a couple of games because the re-injury risk is high. I still do remember when that report came out, it was like, yeah, the chances of him re-aggravating it if he plays that weekend is like 60 to 70%. Maybe those odds have gone down now, but definitely got to get T. Higgins back on the field, man.
Don't you think that our fan base, I get it's a gift and a curse. I hear, like, can you imagine if we would have played like the Ravens without a T. Higgins in the Orlando Brown, based off of our history, like playing them and stuff like that? Like, don't you think that you would have heard nothing but that the whole entire time? And then, or at least my experience, I guess, on like social media. I think our fan base does a real good job of not harping on injuries because our past is so riddled with injuries that it's a key components of our team that it kind of numbs us a little bit. And I thought after that game, nobody brought up the fact that Joe Burrow did all of that with no T. Higgins and Orlando Brown. I thought that was like a big point for me. I was kind of like backing away from it, but I didn't see that comment not once. It was like front office, front office, front office, front office, front office. I'm like,
yeah, I heard it a lot in terms of the Chiefs game, but it was not like that for the Ravens game. You're right. Like I didn't hear. Only thing I heard about was like refs. Like everything was refs and the missed calls, and then like you said, front office has failed Joe Burrow.
See, I think the one of the takeaways from the game too, going into this one, is a lot of people just have like, I'm not going to say given up on the team, but they're very down on a lot of players. And the margin of winning and losing is so small that if the Bengals would have won that game, I just don't think people will have these crazy sentiments. Like, I'm not even going to classify it as crazy. These strong sentiments on certain things. Like Joe Burrow goes to the press conference today. He talks about, I'm going to get hit. And it's because he can't say this, but we all know it. The interior offensive line for the Bengals is not good. And the run game coordination is not good. So if he's just operating in the confines of like a standard Zach Taylor play, look at the Patriots game. That's what that looks like. Not extending anything. I'm just going to run the play exactly how it's supposed to go. If he does that and you don't want to get Joe Burrow hit, like, you're going to lose. And I thought that, like, if he would have won that game, a lot of people would have, their takeaway would have probably been different on the front office in its totality. Instead of them saying that they severely screwed us up, you would say, man, they put together, they were good enough to beat the Ravens. Like, imagine they would have won both of those games that were very, very close. Does anybody feel like the front office, it was their fault for blundering the snap and the kicker not making the kick? Like, if he makes that kick, you've now said that I have a good enough roster to compete with the best team or arguably one of the best teams in the NFL. And then the second time, you have Joe Burrow go all the way down the field, have a throw, and then illegal hands to the face and all that stuff is not called. And afterwards, I just was very disappointed that so many people were like, the construction of this team is just, I'm like, have y'all seen how many teams got blown out by the Ravens? Like, the team is not as bad as you're saying. I do agree that there's some missteps there, but they are putting together a good enough team. But I think everybody wants their cake and eating it too. If you want Joe Burrow to be shiesty or you want just Joe Burrow, like, those are two different things. In moving forward, if T. Higgins is there, maybe he doesn't have to put himself in harm's way as much. But I would encourage people to watch like other games too. I watched the Lions game and the Stafford game with the Rams where they got killed. And their offensive lines are better than ours. You know what I mean? I think it's a sentiment because we've seen Joe Burrow get hurt before. Everybody's like, I don't want him to get hit. I don't need him to get hit.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to get hit. But if he doesn't and he just works in the confines of the play and he doesn't have a T. Higgins, you're just going to lose and get blown out by the Chargers. Like, he has to do those things. Like, now that we're later in the season, it's do or die. the bullets are flying. So I can't now come back and say, hey, front office, what are we going to do here? The interior offensive line, like, why do we have Cabot? Like, none of that's going to – do you think that the Chargers give a damn? Like, they don't care about that stuff. Like, what do you think you're going to do, like, right now? And I guess that's the harsh reality. That's my form of reality. Like, sometimes people say, well, this team just sucks and I'm just being real. No, they don't. The reality is the only way that this team can beat the Chargers or beat any of these other teams that we're about to play is if Joe Burrow takes a bunch of hits and Joe Burrow does that shicey thing that we know that he does and comes out there guns a-blazing like he just did against the Ravens until they could build some type of run game to aid that. Because Kappa, Volson, and company aren't just going to wake up tomorrow and just snap it on. Like what do you want to do?
But is there something else they could do with like find alternatives, looking at somebody else that might be out there? Like, is it like I know some people are against him. I feel like they should kick the tires, but the guy that just got cut by the Bears,
Nate Davis,
that signed like a 3-year deal over there, like it doesn't even seem like they're like some people have talked about Matt Lee, like not even saying that you got to go get somebody outside the building. Some people have talked about Matt Lee. I personally feel like the reason Matt Lee doesn't play is because his size is that of an NFL center. So like, but maybe the situation is you put Matt Lee in that center, maybe you move Ted Karras to guard. Like it just seems like they should at least be open to some kind of change in regards to how bad this like result has been. Because this is what, year 3 in a row, year 2 or 3 in a row where you got the 3 same guys out there and you got the same results. My issue is I understand like Joe getting hit like maybe a couple times in the game to extend the play. But when we're talking 12, 13, like, nah, that's too much for him to get hit. Like that's too much.
So what do you do?
Your risk of something going wrong goes up the more times he gets hit. Now, if it's 4 or 5 times, cool, he got to take some hits. But when you start to get into those double digits, that's when it's like, I don't know.
I feel you, but what are you going to do? You talked about putting in a rookie as a piece or a guy that nobody wanted as a piece. That's super risky.
But right now, I've got a team that's giving up 40 pressures. Like the guys in front of him right now are giving up 30, 40 pressures. They're not playing well. I might as well have a rookie in there. The way that they looking, like I don't expect Ted Karras and these guys to play like some rookies. Like that does seem like a rookie situation. I just feel like you at least need to look at it and try to do something there, like to just sit there and just continue. Because this is, like I said, this is year 3 of us, these 3 guys being there and this being the same result. Even on a line where this is probably the best year for the line. Now that the tackles are gone in terms of Orlando Brown, now it's like the whole thing is just collapsing right now. And I don't know, bro. I just feel like they at least need to evaluate and think of something. Now, if they feel like Matt Lee isn't good, cool. But I'm feeling a lot of Sam Hubbard is playing over Miles Murphy vibes with some of them not looking at the alternatives for the guard position.
Yeah, I catch that. I just think putting it's simple. It's simple to me. Yeah. Like you want to. I don't think you're in contention in the Ravens game. I think you don't go out to a 21-7 lead if Joe Burrow doesn't play like that. Like if he doesn't play that style, what you're asking is you have to pick one. Like you don't have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and they're not walking through the door. You know what I mean? And so you have to pick. He had to throw 57 times. Why? Because we knew before the season you have a bad run game coordination and you're short. Like that's not changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not. And we can move on. I'm not saying like I'm mad that he threw 57 times or anything like that. I think there's been times where he's gotten shiesty and he didn't get hit 14 times. Like to me, it's like the number of hits that he took in this game. I think that's drastically different than any game that he had this season. Right. But I do agree with you from the sentiment of if it's a situation where we got to get this first down and he's got to just get decked.
Season on the line, bro.
You gotta do it.
Every drop back every drop back in Joe Burrow's mind, and including my mind currently right now, is the bullets are flying. This is season on the line. You got to pick. I can aid him with a bad run game, give him some more rushing attempts. I'm probably not up 21-7. I'm probably not up 21-7 because I'm running 2 yards into the Ravens defense. I maybe I have 40-something throws instead of 50-something, but I don't have a 21-7 lead. Joe Burrow, for this line in this run game coordination, you're right. He doesn't need to take that many hits, but at the same time, for him to do it with the wide receivers not getting separation to the level that they're supposed to, I saw a chart earlier today. This is the only way that they have, in my mind, it's the only answer that they have for anybody. And anything that you would classify as a solution, in my mind, it doesn't exist right now, week 10, 11, or whatever week we're in right now. The solutions are no more Frank Pollard. The solutions are new run game coordination. The solutions are go sign Trey Smith in the offseason. The solutions are not in the building. They're not here. And so all of the different things that I could do to be creative, suppose Matt Lee or Nate Davis comes in there and gives up a pressure and this dude gets it crazy and you're like, why do we even do it? You know what I mean? So, and I understand like trying to play around with the line and stuff like that. To me, I think that this is just the way, this is the reality of it for me. The Bengals can go to the playoffs, but the Bengals, the way that they're going to go to the playoffs is what Joe Burrow did Thursday night against the Ravens, where he's extending plays and he's throwing off to Chase Brown maybe 8-9 times as an extension of the run game. So that in itself is just how the Bengals are going to have to play this. Maybe when T. Higgins is back, if he comes back this week, maybe some of that changes and he doesn't have to do as much because T. Higgins can box guys out. He can get open faster. But to me, that's the difference, I think, of what I'm thinking versus sometimes I see different takes online of like, these are the gripes that they have. I understand what everybody is saying about the front office. I understand all these different things. But none of those things can be fixed right now when the bullets are flying. So we can't retreat. And this is the part where Joe Burrow's coming to the podium and saying, yeah, I'm going to get hit because this is what we're at right now. And if you don't want him to get hit, I think the Chargers had the recipe and had the formula with their coverage, which is probably one of the best cover teams that we played all season, to beat the hell out of you.
Yeah. Once again, this video is brought to you guys by BETUS. They're launching a new promotion exclusively based off of the YouTube promo code YouTube150. Make sure you guys do that. You're going to get 150% off on your first deposit instead of the 125. So make sure that you guys take full advantage of that. Let's go ahead and actually get into this. You kind of talked about the defense. Let's talk about that Chargers defense and let's talk about the Bengals offense and what the Bengals offense can kind of do. I think personally, one of the things that I think Zach Taylor shies away from is the run, right? And I feel like some things could have started working out for him in that Ravens game because Chase Brown had some runs, but once he fumbled, it kind of scares Zach Taylor away from the run. They've got to be balanced in this one. And the reason that I say that is the Chargers, with them having that running offense, I think it's going to slow the game down, right, on both sides. So if the Bengals can continue to be good against the run like they have been, offensively, they also need to be able to control the clock as well because this isn't a Chargers team that's been really lighting up the scoreboard. So from that standpoint, running the ball has to at least be attempted. It has to be a part of the game. It has to be utilized to the point where it can kind of try to set up play action. You got to start to run some screens. I don't understand why they don't do it more with Chase Brown. You got to get Khalil Herbert involved to see what that duo can do together. And not only the run game, but the passing game as well. Obviously, when it comes to the passing game, Jamar Chase. I don't care if he's covered. They had a conversation today with Joe Burrow about getting him the ball. The type of targets that Jamar Chase saw last week, they need to continue to do that. You know, I've talked with some people that have been around the Bengals for a long time. They all have said when they have Chad Johnson and they have AJ Green and now they have Jamar Chase, why can't they give these guys the same number of targets that we see other number ones around the league get? I mean, we seen Malik Neighbors in a game in his rookie season get 18 targets. That needs to be the same for Jamar Chase. Like, I know I just said establish the run, but you also have to, if that's not working, you have to pepper with Jamar Chase with at least a minimum of 10 plus targets in this game. He has to be a key focal point in this game because Jamar Chase is a special talent to where even if the play isn't there, even if there's a breakdown, he can still end up taking it for 7 in a game that you're going to need it. So he's got to be a full focal point in this game. I think he can be. You talk about T. Higgins, he's going to be huge in this game. We need that third receiver to step up. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if it's Jermaine Burton. I don't know if it's Andre Yoshivas. It's got to be one of them. I don't know if it's Mike Gesicki. Somebody else has to be a guy that's going to be able to get that third share, that's going to be able to make an impact. Now, it doesn't have to be crazy. I'm not saying that third person has to go off for 100 or something, but you got to at least give me a touchdown. You got to at least give me 40 to 50 yards. You got to at least give me somebody that's going to be able to open up this offense. And Zach, I'm sorry, bro. You're going to have to step it up as a play caller. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you're going against Jim Harbaugh in this one. I don't really like that matchup against the number one offense, the number one offense or number one defense in terms of scoring. So Zach's gonna have to be on he's gonna have to be on it. His feel for the game is gonna have to be better. When to call the plays, I think is really what we talk about. Like, yes, you can have plays and stuff like that, but when you call them and knowing the momentum and what's at stake, I think has to be considered. Now, I feel like his feel was better last week, especially with the decisions on when to go for it on 4th down and to go for it on 2. We need that same energy this week. So I'm just hoping that the offense can do that. Zim, I've been talking ad nauseum. What are your thoughts on the Bengals offense and what they can do against this Chargers defense?
When I look at the Chargers, like schedule in its totality, like I said, I don't know if they've seen anybody that has had the offensive firepower as us. The crazy, ironic thing is one of the guys that I was pushing for this all season, who was actually a friend of Jamar Chase, Christian Fulton, is a guy that's been playing really damn good. I actually had a chance to go watch a couple of their games earlier, but their coverage is currently ranked 4th in PFF out of all, participating teams in the National Football League. The Bengals ranked 27th at that. So, and another thing, Herbert's been playing really well, and I'm not going to get on that side yet, but the coverage of it, I think that could make or break this game. I don't know if the Chargers have been tested like what I think Burrow can do. And when I look at like the pass rush for them, Chargers are like middle of the pack. If you haven't seen this too, Khalil Mack is pretty much been hampered with an injury, and then Bosa's on a snap count. But the guy that's been killing is Thule, a rookie that a lot of Bengals fans know pretty well that wanted him in the draft. Thule has been on a tear. He has 6 sacks over the last couple of weeks in the interior of the offensive line. I think that could be very problematic for this game. And those couple things, that's why when we were in the T. Higgins conversation, I don't think he'll have the ability to move as much as he wants, because I think the pass rush for the Chargers is probably slightly better than the Ravens one. So if you're going to drop back that many times, I just can't see it. The run game has to get off at some point in this game. Even if the Bengals start off like Joe was, like a man possessed, throwing, I think he led the beginning of that game like 5-6 passes. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but it felt like he just came out throwing, even if it was a short game. They have to get the run game involved with that to aid him at some point. Or to your point, he's going to probably get hit too many times because he's made it clear without saying it, the playbook is not scheming people open fast enough. The separation, when you go look at the charts, is not there. Even though we do have the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, it's not there. So you have to extend plays. And against this Charger interior rush with Thule and Morgan Fox and guys like that, I wouldn't play around with it like that. And so to me, that's one of the bigger keys in the game. Their run game, as we get on the defensive side for the Chargers, I've been looking at it, has definitely come down off of what it was at the beginning of the season. but Herbert has stepped his game up.
No, for sure. For sure. Before we go to the defensive side of the ball, we're going to take a break and talk about the Wincy play of the week. This is for the people out there that are using BetUS that want to know what Ace and Zim are going to play this week. Let me go ahead and get this pulled up, man. We went with some props last week. Doesn't look like they're giving us any props this week, but obviously you can get more of those on BetUS. So make sure you monitor those. We got some props, but right now I'm looking at some of these things that we got. Let's go to the touchdowns. Anytime touchdowns right now. Highest odds is actually, it looks like J.K. Dobbins, bro. This is a little nasty. Nasty. J.K. Dobbins minus 125. Lab McConkey, I know we kind of talked about him, right? As a potential draft person for the Bengals. He's plus 179. Jamar Chase minus 143. Chase Brown minus 167. We got our boy Yoshi down there plus 300. Jermaine Burton, anytime touchdown, plus 550.
T. Higgins.
Then also let's talk about the line too. The line is pretty close though. They're giving the Bengals plus one. If you take them on the money line, it's plus 105. What's up?
What was the T. Higgins prop?
T. Higgins prop for anytime touchdown is plus 170.
Okay. So Vegas thinks that T. Higgins playing.
Yes, I think so. I don't know if they think that he's gonna score, but that's where we come in. That's where we come in.
Those are pretty damn good odds. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, this is very interesting. I one thing, you were talking about Burton last week, and I get it. He's got some things. I thought he opened up when you go back to watch it. He opened up a lot for Chase, and a lot of people aren't really talking about like a lot of his routes open it up for Chase to get that the spacing in between the linebacker and the safeties. And I think it sounds crazy, but the anytime Burton, I will put a small amount of money, but the odds are like so much. The anytime Burton, touchdown is like, it's a little sexier to me. Like even
so
if
I want to go 50 on the anytime Burton, 50 to win the 325.
In a separate bet though, we need to go get our money back and go, do something like go hedge somewhere else. But yeah, the 50 for that, yeah. I think that it's going to be there. I think Burrow is going to be pissed he didn't connect on those two deep throws, and the attention to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is going to be there. The one-on-one is going to be there for Burton all day.
Right. Got you. Yeah, I agree on that. All right. Submit it in. That one is in. So you guys can see we actually really willing and dealing here with this right here. I'm going to go ahead and take Chase Brown, man. I think Chase Brown anytime touchdown is not necessarily a lot, but pretty much a lot, man. I think that's easy money. You're not going to get much profit off of it. So I think this week I'm going to pass on the Chase Brown. I'm going to pass on the Jamar Chase. I know you're talking about hedging. I come from a little place where we say F hedging, and I'm going to take T. Higgins plus 170. Give me that. I will take it. Give me another 50 piece on that because I think between these two guys, one of them is going to end up scoring. And then, of course, if he doesn't play, they just take the bet out of there. So you do have insurance from that standpoint. But I'm going to go with the T. Higgins 50 ball on him getting an anytime touchdown. Welcome back, T. Welcome back to the end zone.
Welcome back, T.
And welcome back to the Wincy Play of the Week.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. Let's get into this defense, man. Bengals defense has their work cut out for them. How do you see this game kind of going from a defensive standpoint against this Justin Herbert led offense?
Justin Herbert has been on a quiet tear that people are not talking about. He's been one of the highest rated passers in PFF. If you watched him, he's been playing mistake-free football. He hasn't had to do much in some of these games and manage a lot of those games, but he's not making poor decisions. And one thing that I know that he can exploit is the intermediates. He also has the deep bomb that he could throw to Quentin Johnson at his disposal as well too. I think CTB in that matchup, I know it's going to sound crazy. I kind of like it. I get it. CTB is not having the greatest year ever, but if CTB has a pick last week, I think all is forgiven. If you think about it, the 2 times early in the game where CTB was tested deep, he could have picked that one at the very beginning of the game against Lamar, and then the one later, 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he drops that one. His matchup versus Quentin Johnson, I like that. The McConkey one, this is another one. A lot of people don't talk about this, and you kind of were telling me about this not too long ago, is DJ Turner. And a lot of people talk about how the Bengals staff hasn't had anybody flourish, hasn't ascended or anything. DJ Turner is having an uptick in snaps this year, and he's played a lot better, and he's given up less yards than I ever thought. I looked at from what he did last year against bigger guys like George Pickens and said, there's no way that this guy can play on the outside. He's been holding his own. I'm not as worried about that Ladd McConkey matchup as I would have been before, because I saw how the Bengals handled Zay Flowers in the matchup that they had previously. And I think some of those same concepts and some of the things that you would be worried about with McConkey, I think you can kind of eliminate those with DJ Turner playing his. The depth from the linebackers, the aid in that or whatever, I do like as well too. Our linebackers do, I think, play the pass a lot better than most teams, even though Jermaine Pratt is top 5 in yards given up to linebackers in the NFL. I think that his play has kind of gone down a little bit this season, and people haven't talked about that. But I do think there are some things that we could do. Their run game, I'm not as worried about as I would have been early in the year. Their run game has quietly regressed a little bit. And then on my end, and they did get Gus Edwards back recently too. J.K. Dobbins, though, like in the last couple of weeks or something, hasn't run well. The Bengals quietly, and I had this conversation with you. I said, what, and people in the chat, you can chime in on this. What team has ran on the Bengals like really good this season? Was it Saquon, who didn't go for 100, but he probably could have had they not beat the hell out of us late in that game? Was it Pacheco early in the season where we kind of gave it up because we wanted, them to run rather than pass? Like, what was the run game that whatever? The reason why I asked you that is because most metrics had the Bengals as a top 10, 11th ranked defense, PFF, ESPN, and others that are putting their data together now have the Bengals as a top 10, top 11 run defense in the NFL, which I think has quietly happened. As much as they haven't had any pressure up front, I think that they can do that. They do have the bodies. They have Chris Jenkins. They have Sheldon. They have B.J. Hill that they could throw out there along with McKinley Jackson and company and Sam Hubbard, who hasn't given you anything pass rush-wise, but has contributed well to the run defense. I think that that's something that the Bengals can do well. They did it early in the Ravens game, got themselves to a 21-7 lead, had them punting 5 times. I don't think that the run game of the Chargers is anything like the run game right now. With the threat of Lamar Jackson running in company, you do have to watch out for Herbert. But I think that they can stop that, and if they can get Herbert in some decisions where he's trying to launch the ball down the field, much like that 2020 game that we played where he was just throwing jump balls down the damn field. Everybody remember that game? And we had Uno has the juggle interception. That was a wild game. But the final score didn't tell the story of that game. He was just throwing jump ball at the jump ball. If you can get him again, I think for all the heat that Geno Stone, all the heat that CTB is taking this week, rightfully so, I think that they come back and they make the plays this time.
Yeah, I think for me, this can't be another game where it's only Trey Hendrickson. You talking about him going against Rashawn Slater. You talk about Joe Alt. You could argue that that's possibly one of the best, tackle combos in the league, or young tackle combos in the league right now. Hendrickson has got to win against Slater. He's got to win at least once or twice in there. B.J. Hill is going to be huge. Joseph Asai against Joe Alt. We've been hearing a lot, Joseph Asai is playing better. I need to see it, bro. I got to see the sack happen on the field, especially when it comes to this pass rush. So pass rush is going to have to be a big factor in this game. Maybe we can take advantage of their interior. You talk about Bozeman and Salyer. according to PFF, which take that with a grain of salt, however much stock you put into it, they seem to be the weakest points on the line. However, the other three positions are very strong. When it comes to what this team has been able to do through the air, they just recently have started to go to the air. So I think that bodes well for the Bengals. Mike Hilton, trying to get him in certain situations where you could try to blitz him and get some pressure onto them. Herbert hasn't really turned the ball over. That's one of the things. So if you could try to take advantage of that, that's something that they need to do. And then, of course, you got to slow down Dobbins and Gus Edwards. These aren't running backs that you're not familiar with because you played against them with the Ravens. You played against them when Greg Roman was scheming it up, so you know the scheme. So this defense needs to have success against this offense, and I think that is part of what they will need to do to win this game. And if the defense can rush the passer, if they can set the edge and limit long explosive plays and runs, I think they'll be just fine. However, this defense has been inconsistent. So, are they going to put in more Jordan Battle? Are we going to see some Dejan Anthony now that Geno Stone has kind of gotten exposed in some situations?
Give me some Tyson Anderson too. Like, what about
Tyson Anderson needs to? We got to start switching these things up when we're seeing that certain things aren't working. So hopefully we'll get that from this game. But this defense is going to be crucial to this win, man, because that Chargers defense is going to bring it. So we'll see how those things pan out. But before we get into the end of the show, I just want to go ahead and toss it to our sponsor with the new boneless wings, Midwest Best BBQ.
Wings and them CTVs. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. It's the AC to the Zim, M into the B's. Uno wings, G-Funk wings, and them CTVs. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Say what up to Jordan Battle. We be going to battle. Intercepting balls like CTV did on Seattle. Putting 6 up on AZ. Juice gang amazing. Make sure you come get these wings, cause Zimby stay blazing. And T-Game be smooth as ice. Jamal making DBs fold. TV got big levels, and now you already know. It's so pretty for Uno wings. Cam got the new wings. We call them CTBs. Only at MBs. H to the Zim, M into the B's.
Welcome to Midwest Best BBQ is what they say when you pop in there. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Like I said, man, even if you get ready for Thanksgiving, they just put on a nice private spread for international paper. They can get you and your family right. Make sure you go ahead and try to book that Thanksgiving order now. I saw they had the mac and cheese. I saw some greens over there. Looked like they threw down. They had the barbecue going. Like, I'm telling you, man, they'll get you right. You don't want to have to cook for Thanksgiving? Holla at Midwest Best BBQ. You got to put it in now. If you're doing any catering events or anything like that for your business, or you're thinking about doing something for your office, definitely be sure to check out Midwest Best BBQ. You can also make those bookings on their website, so make sure you check that out, MidwestBestBBQ.com. So make sure you check them out and holla at them. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you over there. All right, man. This is the part of the show where it seems similar because we've kind of talked about what our strategies are. But give me the game plan for how the Bengals come out of here with a victory against the Chargers in LA.
It kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier, about like Burrow not being hit. I just watched the team last week run for 120 on them. If the Bengals got anywhere near that, I think they can roll them. If the Bengals can come out there with like a serious run game, and you think about the 2022 season, remember when we beat the crap out the Panthers? Remember when we beat the crap out of a lot of those teams that we played around that time? These are all games that we ran the ball well in. And then you start cooking them with the throws, and now the rush isn't, getting to him. And until they can show me that they can consistently run the football, that's my only gripe with them. But that is the key to what they need to be doing. it's easier said than done. A lot of people want to run the football. I watched the Texans the other night, want to run the football, couldn't do it against the Lions defensive front. Joe Mixon had 25 carries for like 30 yards or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it was nothing going. And if it's like that, the Bengals defense isn't good enough to stop Herbert for 4 quarters. And so that's where Joe Burrow's like, well, I got to go and get these points. And I just wish that they could come out there and figure out a way. Even if it's an extension, like you talked about the screen game, but get out there and just let the offense get into those long drives like they did in the Ravens game. Keep them off the field. This is an unfamiliar team. They don't really know about Bengals like football, like, you know, like the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. These fans of other teams always say that, and then they have to play us. And then that's when and Joe Burrow was happy as hell today at the press conference, smiling and stuff like that. I think he feels good about what the game plan is, and I think he knows that these pressure situations are what he thrives in. And I think it's very simple. Just it's not a crazy game plan for me this week or very intricate. I looked at them. They play more cover 3 than maybe 90% of the NFL. So they're a heavy cover 3. So you're going to see single high generally. In the past, we will always say, well, that's what most teams do. And then they play us and they go cover 2. The league is shifting a lot if you really go look at the numbers away from cover 2 shells and actually getting into more single high looks throughout this season. And if they do that with a guy like Burton, and this is the first time that we might get Burton, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase on the field at the same time. I don't think there's a team that could stop that. I just don't. And until I see it, I'm going to keep on preaching that. But setting up the run game so that you can go get those deep shots and it making sure that the run defense does what it's been doing quietly, as much as there are probably people that have been in the chat that said that the defense is crap or whatever. Tell me, the person that might say that, tell me what team killed this in the run game and when was that? Since the Bengals have got most of their pieces back, they stopped the run consistently. They did that early in the game, and Lamar Jackson made some crazy-ass plays to make it work, like later on for them. Limit those crazy plays and close these boys the hell out. The Bengals have been one of the worst closing teams of all time this season. They're the greatest 4-6 team you will ever see. Number 1 quarterback, number 1 wide receiver. In terms of numbers, I ain't trying to have no debate. And then you got the sack leader, and you're 4-6 because you can't close out games. You get a lead and do any of the stuff that you were doing before and close them out. Don't let Herbert let him get moving and get around. He's got wheels too. And close them out. Take the air out of there. And all of the people that travel and all the people that's on the road be the loudest that you can be. This is a stadium that isn't just their stadium. In a lot of these games, they've gone into silent counts at their own home stadium. I think the Bengals travel really, really well. Hopefully, a lot of people go out to LA and factor that in there too, and we go and take this win. And once you do that, we go into the bye, and I think the energy and everything around this team is a lot different.
Yeah, I think in this one, you got to, number one, control the turnover margin. You got to win that, right? That hurt the Bengals last week with the Chase Brown fumble. You also have to be able to rush and get to Justin Herbert. When what that really means overall is you got to win in the trenches on both sides. If the Bengals can do that in this game, that's how you usually win. I mean, the game is won in the trenches. So if you can have Trey Hendrickson make an opportunity or take an opportunity to take down Herbert, that's huge. So I think that's going to be another thing, controlling the line of scrimmage. I'm going to put this one out there. 3rd down percentage and 4th down conversion percentage, it's got to be positive. I'm not saying it's got to be perfect, but they've got to be, 60+% in terms of converting as well. And they've got to be better at executing on short yardage plays. Like I think that they did some stuff last week. I know everybody's going to want to talk about the 40-yard passes because that's what I talked about. But they did do some good things where they ran the trick play with the tight end going in motion and picking up the 1st down. Like they've got to make sure that they're just able to not make those things harder than they have to be. Get the yards and move on. I think from a defensive perspective, like Zim is saying, you got to slow down the run. That's what this team likes to do. It starts there We know Greg Roman isn't doing anything crazy from a passing standpoint. So you got to make sure that you're ready for those runs and that you're making sure that you're not allowing them to extend the game, take you off of the field, and take your super weapons, which are Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, off of the field. And then, of course, Burrow and Chase, they got to win it for you. Keep the ball in Jamar Chase's hands at key points in this game. And I think that that's a huge key. And those are some of the keys from us to you guys, to the keys of victory. So with that being said, you guys know the Wincinnati podcast is live every Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we get out of here, partner, was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm just out here just saying, hey, like, just championing the message I had earlier. If you feel as though the Bengals do not make you happy, I promise you, please make sure you go find some things that do. For the other people that come on here to try to go and have some fun and cheer for this team, I want y'all to turn up and be as lit as possible and enjoy the tradition of rooting for your NFL team to win football games that matter, because you have an excellent quarterback, excellent wide receiver, excellent rusher, and different elements of your team that are very, very likable, and it's something to root for. Don't make yourself miserable talking on the internet and just convincing yourself that they're so horrible and the front office is that. Go find a hobby like ping pong and shit. There's all types of stuff you could do. But for people like me that just want to enjoy, like, just chilling, watching the game and wanting my team to win or whatever, like, let me just do my thing. We'll catch you on the back end.
Yes, sir. We'll catch y'all on the back end. Who that?